I wish I could say I pray like first thing in the morning. I do pray, but the first thing that I do is pick up my phone and check what's trending on social media. So I go to Instagram first of all, and then Twitter, and then Facebook, and then life gets on. Yeah, so that's basically it. Oh, I've got a couple of favorites actually, and I think it depends on the point I am at in my life. So I'm going to talk about 4, like just touch on them. And I think I read them, each one of them at a turning point in my life. So the first one would be Eat, Pray, Love. I remember I read this in 2009. I was going through like a bit of a moment, and basically it's a book about a woman who went through a divorce, and she decided to travel to Italy to go eat, and then she went off to India to pray, and then eventually she ended up in Bali and she fell in love. So it really did a lot for me at that point. I think it's for anybody who's going through a moment of not being sure about what life has to offer, and you're going through some kind of transition. I think it's a beautiful book for that. And then another book is What I Know For Sure. I read this towards the end of last year, I think last year November, and it's a book by Oprah Winfrey, and it's basically her giving us insight and some of her revelations on her truth, just going into her authentic self and saying, at this point in my life, this is what I went through, and this is what I learned from that particular experience. So it actually took me into myself. I had to dig deep inside of myself as well, and also find my truth. Another book that I think is totally has shaken me up a bit is a book called The Shack. The Shack basically challenged should I say religion or spirituality as I knew it, because basically it's apparently fiction, but it challenges the notion of God as we know him, because in The Shack, God is a woman, but it's also about somebody going through deep grief and how he eventually goes out of it through his interactions with God. And the last book that I'd like to touch on is The Alchemist. The Alchemist is about finding yourself, finding your purpose, and I think it's a book that everybody should read. It's by Paulo Coelho, and I absolutely loved it. So I love reading. I think it's quite clear. So these are the 4 books that I'd like to share, and I believe I'd call them my favorite. I love traveling. I wonder how you know that I love traveling, because it's not like I haven't been to as many places that I like to, but I absolutely do love traveling. You're right, because I don't think there's anything as I don't know what to call it, but as fulfilling and as something that grows you as much as exposure, getting to know what goes on in places beyond where you are from. So that is why I'd always want to travel, just to get exposure. For instance, I'll give you an example. Earlier this year, I went to Nigeria for 3 months on an internship. Just before I got the opportunity, I'd had an opportunity to partner with a particular bank locally on a campaign. They wanted me to be the face of that campaign. And I had to leave that opportunity because I wanted an opportunity to get exposure. So I chose going to Nigeria over, this campaign, because I think going out there and interacting with people with different cultures is such a growth experience. And I wasn't disappointed even after that, even after the sacrifice that I had to make, because you grow and you become so much better. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. If anything, I'd call what I'm going through a transition, to becoming even greater, like my greater self. Because I've been in broadcasting for the last 9 years, and I've been working at the same place, which is the Department of Broadcasting Services, throughout those 9 years. So I think I reached a point where I figured, for me to get to know myself even more, for me to be able to tap into skills, and let me just call it my greatness, I need to make the bold move of leaving my comfort zone. So that's basically what it was. I've had dreams and aspirations of conquering the world as a media practitioner ever since I was young. So I think, I had to make that very, very bold move, that bold step to reach out for my dreams, to turn my dreams into reality. So it is a transition, and I think look out for me, like there's so many great things that I believe I'm going to be doing in the broadcasting as well as media space, not just in Botswana, in Africa. So that is why I'm calling this a transition. So look out for, me and, everything that I'm going to be doing in the media space. Absolutely not. I'm actually getting emotional just thinking about that decision. I got diagnosed with endometriosis in 2012. Okay, well, 2010, after, the kind of pains that I've been going through, especially around my period, I came across a doctor who actually mentioned that I could have a condition called endometriosis. I didn't know what endometriosis was. I never heard of it. So I sort of just dismissed it, and I never bothered to even go back. 2012, during an operation where I was supposed to be removing fibroids, I was diagnosed with endometriosis. My doctor found something that is called a frozen pelvis, which is basically everything being stuck together. Like your intestines are stuck to your bladder, stuck to your ovaries, stuck to the uterus. So that is how I was diagnosed. That's how I got to know about it. And I remember from the very beginning, talking to people close to me and telling them, you know what, I wish I could come out and share my story. I wish I could come out and talk about this condition, but it's such a pity I don't have the strength. I didn't have the strength at that particular moment. So earlier this year, I was going through change, in different areas in my life. First of all, I just left my job at the Department of Broadcasting Services. Second of all, I was going through a separation, from my husband. I felt I wanted some sort of liberation from this experience. And as much as I wanted liberation, I also wanted to touch somebody else's life as I was going through my lowest point. So that's when I made the bold decision in March. March is Endometriosis Awareness Month. I decided, you know what, I'm going to come out and share my experience, because I wanted to do what I wish somebody had done for me, created awareness about this condition that very few people know of, but it's deadly. It's a chronic, reproductive ailment, and it causes infertility. I dealt a bit, in the few years that I was married, with challenges of infertility. So I felt, you know what, there's nothing better than sharing your experience with the next person and hopefully touching a life and allowing somebody to go out and, hopefully get tested and get treatment at an earlier stage. Oh my goodness, I wish I didn't have endometriosis, but I've come to accept that it's there, and I've actually gotten over the why me phase. I've been through that phase where I was asking God, like, why me of all people? I've done this, I've done that whole self-righteous stage. And ultimately got to accept that so many different people have different conditions. Like, I think everybody has a thing. A friend of mine calls it a thing. Everybody has some kind of baggage that they're carrying. And who am I to sit here and think I don't deserve to have a thing? So this is what I'm dealing with, and I've come to accept it and also see how to creatively live with it. Thus I've made the bold, choice of talking about my experience and creating awareness on it. It's definitely not easy. It has affected my life in, various ways. First of all, endo is a very painful condition. You're constantly in pain, therefore you can't function right. Second of all, infertility, like I'm saying, I've dealt with struggling to conceive. I definitely do not believe, I'm infertile, as in I'll never conceive. That is basically what a lot of people have actually asked. How do you feel knowing that you'll never have kids? I honestly believe I will. So yes, I have struggled with conception, but I don't believe, that is the end of it for me. And over and above that, am I looking forward to having a relationship? Absolutely. And I think I mentioned, coming out and talking about my condition as something liberating. It absolutely is liberating, because I think going into the next relationship, it's not a secret, first of all. It's not anything that's hanging over me that I'm going to have to share with this person. Anybody, especially locally, knows that Gaona has come out, or at least most people know that I've come out and spoken about it. So it's going to be very easy for me to share it, and whoever is going to want to be a part of my life will have to understand that this is what I'm dealing with. And hopefully, whatever baggage it is that he's coming with, I hope I'll be ready to take as well. Okay, what I recently went through, I'm not too sure if we're talking about endometriosis or my divorce, or actually both, because it's been a very trying year for me. How do I make it? First of all, I look around and I see so many people who've been through what I'd call even worse circumstances or worse situations than mine. And for some reason, they are gracefully living through life, And those are people who inspire me. Second of all, I've got a very supportive, extremely supportive family, who've have been there for me throughout my journey from the beginning, be it endometriosis or my decision to actually walk away, painful decision to walk away from my matrimonial home. They've been there and, try to see things from my point of view, try to be supportive and understanding of the decisions, as well as just giving me that shoulder to cry on, because it hasn't been easy. I've got very supportive friends as well. But even above everything, I think what's also been amazing and, quite phenomenal this year is the amount of support I've gotten from total strangers, people who don't know me, but people who reached out to me and said, we've been there, hang in there, it's only going to get better. And I think the ultimate, of course, is the Almighty God, of course. I sometimes marvel at the amount of strength I have, and I can only credit God for that, because otherwise I do not know how I could still be standing. So absolutely, it has to be, first of all, God, plus a combination of all the other support systems that I've mentioned. At this point, absolutely not. But I'll be very honest with you. I think when you're at your lowest, you can't help but feel maybe I shouldn't have made this particular decision. I wish I'd made a different decision. But I think once you've sort of like made it through it or survived your lowest point, you kind of see that, without this, I wouldn't be the person that I am. You find that from your lowest point, you get to find so much strength and so much wisdom as well, because I think with experiences, as long as you are open-minded enough to learn from whatever experience that you go through, there's just so much growth there. So because of that, I absolutely do not regret anything. I'm somebody who totally believes in constantly striving for self-awareness, self-actualization, and with every experience that I've been through, I try to sort of find myself, try to introspect and see what new lessons there could be in that particular experience for me. So no regrets whatsoever. Oh my goodness, negative people. Do I even deal with them? I think I just choose not to deal with them, because first of all, what I've noticed, especially from a couple of years ago as a public figure in my country, of course, you can't help but, it stings when somebody says something nasty about you or, criticizes you in a very extreme dysfunctional manner. It stings a bit. But I've come to learn that many a times we dwell on the 3 out of 100 people who had something negative to say, and we end up not acknowledging and embracing the 97 people who had something positive to say. So that's what I've decided. You know what? People have got wounds that they're carrying around. People have got baggage that they're dealing with. People are, dealing with whatever it is that they may be dealing with, and people are hurting basically. So at times I try to sort of empathize. Okay, what could this person be going through? Why are they being so nasty? It's probably about them and not me. And I think that's how I actually deal with it. I've come to accept that, I don't want to own people's issues. Those are your issues. If you think so negatively of me and you can't even put it in a constructive manner, then you are you've definitely got issues. You are wounded and you're aching inside. So it's not my baby. So I basically just choose to ignore such. Advice for my 15-year-old self. Wow. I think something that I struggled with throughout, over the last couple of years, is self-confidence, self-love, also being able to believe in my own greatness. So I think to my 15-year-old self, I would want to empower her enough to, first of all, toot her own horn. There's nothing wrong with you saying, this is what I'm capable of, this is why I'm unique, these are my strengths. So I think, first of all, that is the first thing that I'd advise my 15-year-old self. Be comfortable enough to believe in your own greatness. My favorite quote is, you are the first of your kind and the last there'll ever be. And at times I just think of how I wasted so many years trying to compare myself to one person or another, thinking I'm not good enough or I'm inadequate in whatever areas. But when I think about it, the fact that God made only one me, one version of me, means I am good enough, So that is the one lesson or one piece of advice I'd have for my 15-year-old self. You are the first of your kind and the last there'll ever be. So step into your greatness. Believe it. You're unique. You're great. So yeah, that would basically be it.